Hi everybody, I'm Cindy Gay and today's lesson is about building a stash. You're a new rug hooker and you need everything, right? But you don't need to run out and buy everything. There's some strategies that you can follow that will help you to get the biggest bang for your buck. First off, you don't need every single piece of equipment. You don't need a little thing to comb out the threads on your frame. You don't need a loop lifter. You don't need a burling iron. If you don't know what any of these things are, time out. Don't worry about that. Let's keep it to the basics until you get a little further down the line, right? So when you start out, you need basic stuff. And I'm going to be talking today just about the wool. And the wool that you need is, in the beginning, all you need is the wool you need for that particular project. Now, I know that there are rug hookers out there because I've worked with them who don't have a stash, but they've been hooking for 10, 15 years. They've got some scraps, but they don't have anything substantial. And that's because every time they hook a rug, they work with the teacher and they have the teacher put together all the wool that they need for that rug. Now, it's a huge expense up front. Something as small as this little guy, one of my stair risers, depending on what the background is, it can cost, including the pattern, it can cost $100, and that's just a stair riser. Now, when you start talking about a bigger rug, you're talking about a lot more wool and it's going to be more expensive. The pattern's going to be more expensive. It's all going to add up. So getting just the wool you need for that project and not a bit more is a great way to keep your costs down. Because in the beginning, you really don't know what to buy. And you're just, oh, that's pretty. Oh, that's pretty. Do you buy half a yard, a quarter yard, a strip, which is a 1/16 of a yard? Or do you get 4 yards? How do you make those decisions? That's what I want to talk with you about today. Now, I got an email from Amy, and she says, I'm looking for ideas to build a collection of wool in order to work on rug hooking designs, and I'm not sure where to start. It seems cost prohibitive to consider buying a rainbow of wools, and I wondered if you have any tips. I have quite a few. Now, my first tip is pick your palette. Are you a primitive, dull, very unsaturated type color person? Or are you bright and almost neon and whatever you can get brightness-wise kind of a person? Are you somewhere in between? Do you like pure colors? Do you like gray colors? You have to figure that out first, okay? Once you figure that out, then you only buy that because that's what you're going to use. Now, once you've got wool that's sitting on your shelf and it's not getting used, there are ways to address that. And remind me at the end of this broadcast to tell you what those ways are, because that's not in my notes and I'll probably forget it. But there are ways to change a wool to some extent once you have it if you bought something wrong, something that's not quite working. But what I recommend is when you're buying wool is to buy a collection, or at least know what you have and what you're missing. So these just happen to be some bundles that I put together for hooking trees. And I guess they work this way, with the dark at the top and light at the bottom. This is one way to be sure it's going to work because someone with experience put this together. Now, it could be just a bundle of greens, and that is not necessarily going to guarantee it's going to work for a tree, right? But if you buy a tree bundle for me, it's going to work for a tree. I have color planned hundreds of trees, so those will work. Another way you can find a bundle is like something like this. This has been sitting on my shelf for a little while. It's a antique background that's already been cooked. It's got some pieces that are smaller than what I would normally sell. Normally there's 6 perfect pieces in here, but these are a little bit more mixed up. So there could be more than a yard in here. I don't know for sure, but I'm selling it at the yard price. But the point is, there's a lot of variety in here, and you can do a lot with it without having to buy a bunch of yardage. Okay. I don't personally recommend buying yardage, even though I sell a ton of yardage, because if you're first starting out, what's important is variety. You need a lot of little pieces to be able to put together a rug. And the easiest way to do that is to buy some kind of a bundle or a pre-bundle. Once you're down to looking for different kinds, I forgot why I even got these out. When you're looking for different kinds of wools, there's different strategies for each kind, okay? This one is a solid wool, okay? If I have a label on here, in this particular case, I don't. I should have grabbed one with a good label. I can dye this color all day long, and I can make as much of this as I need. So I don't need to get a whole lot of it. I only need a little bit for what I'm working on. A wool like this, in comparison, is a textured wool that is only available for a very limited time. And once this is gone, you can't buy it anywhere. So if you fall in love with this, you better have bought enough to last you on your journey, right? So that you have plenty of wool to get through until the end. I also recommend buying your wools in such a way that they work as almost a gradation swatch. Okay, now clearly, these are not a gradation swatch. If you want a gradation swatch, I don't sell those, but I know who does. My friend Kim Hurt sells gradation swatches, and you can find those at becauseofyou.com. And she can help you out there with whatever colors you want. But I recommend buying textures in such a way that if you already have a bunch of dark ones, then concentrate on getting some light ones so that you have a little bit of everything so that you have something to do with. Now, they don't have to be the exact color going through. And that was probably more obvious here. You know, where this one, when it's hooked, it's almost a plum. And we have one here that's an orange. And this has some orange, but also some pink in it. I like things that aren't perfect light to dark all in one value. Okay, so a lot of times what I'll see at rug cooking shows are bundles of wool like this, where every wool in here is a different texture, but they dyed it all with the same wool. You're buying one wool. When you test that and you go through and you do a hooking of that, all of them look the same. There is no real difference in there. So you want to get some real clear difference. And to test it, you're going to make a texture sampler. So here's a texture sampler. I teach this in the color planning course, and it's basically a piece of the wool flat and then a piece of it hooked. But what that does is it teaches you what that wool looks like. Or if you want to know if this wool will go with, say, this wool down here, you can bend your texture sampler, put the hooking right next to each other. And you didn't have to hook it to go, oh, shoot, it doesn't look right, and pull it out, right? You've got a permanent record of what your wools look like. And so by looking at your texture sampler over time, you really learn how particular wools behave. And that will serve you quite a bit long term. Okay, so another way to get a good quantity of wool at a cheaper price is going to be my wool sale, which happens at the end of the month. It happens on the last Saturday of each month. I don't know how many more months I'll be doing this, because at some time, as fast as it sells, I'm going to run out of wool. Okay, so log into the dashboard. That's going to be your best bet on howtorugcook.com. And then click on the wool sale icon. You need Zoom. And so I recommend, if you've never used Zoom, to come to the hook-in first and try out the hook-in, because then you're not, I want to buy that, but I can't chat. Come to the hook-in, experiment with chatting, and we can help you out from there. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Elizabeth says, does it make sense to purchase a variety of background fabrics to stash and then purchase motif wools once you begin your project and decide on the palette? Well, your background wool should match your palette, so it's not going to be an independent decision per se. But I don't buy huge quantities. In fact, when I am hooking, I'll have a couple, maybe on my room size rug, I have a couple hundred pieces of wool that are this big. None of it is yardage for the background. It's all small pieces that basically I'm dyeing stuff that's in my stash that I wasn't using. I throw it in the dye pot and poof, it's antique background. But she says, but for running out of wool, well, the way I make sure I never, ever, ever run out of wool is I use a lot of variety, and I'm never going to run out of wool. I mean, I never have that hanging over my head. Imagine how that would feel to know that no matter what happens, you have enough, right? So you don't have to go, I'm hooking a giant room size rug. I need to lay in 6 yards of background. No, I started with virtually nothing. I had a small stash, and I just dyed more as I needed it, and it worked out just fine. Heather says, could you show us several samples of your wools in each of your live session and give us their numbers? Heather, I could. The problem is, by the time it hits the replay, that wool is sold out. So the best bet to buy wool, if you want to buy it from me, is to get in touch with me, set up a video call, and I'll hold up wools for you. You tell me what colors you want, and I'll hold them up for you. The only thing I ask is don't take up an hour of my time and buy one $3.50 strip. Okay? That's just not fair. I'm willing to help you, take as long as it takes, but let's make it fair for both of us. Okay? But the wool sale is the best place to do that, because that's exactly what I do. It's exactly what I do. And I was experimenting with doing a wool of the week and holding it up and showing everybody. But then I'm constantly getting emails. I can't find the wool of the week on your website. Yeah, it's because it's sold out. That was 3 months ago. It's gone. It was gone by that Tuesday. So that's just, there's so much prep that goes into this lesson that's one more that right now I haven't been able to do that. So maybe if something changes, I don't know. But if you're looking for something, you let me know, or come to the hook-in and ask me at the hook-in. I'm looking for questions. I don't think I have any. Okay. So that's it question-wise on how to build a stash. Just start slow until you know what you like. Consider getting the services of a teacher and having them color plan your rug. You've got everything you need. It's unique to you, and you have just the right amount, no extra. That's the perfect way to buy wool. So have fun rug cooking and enjoy the journey.